So far away, Brad. What do you know about Harry Houdini?
He was a magician.
Yes, and an escape artist, as we're about to discuss. Harry Houdini is a name synonymous with escape artistry, to the point where if a child is born as a result of a broken condom, you are morally obligated to make the middle name Houdini. I love that joke. I love that one. It's great. Anyway, but did you know, according to Houdini, his most difficult escape was from a single pair of really, really good handcuffs? So far away, Brad, how familiar are you with the various feats of escape artistry credited to one Harold Houdinius?
I wouldn't say I was familiar with what's credited to him, but I imagine I've probably seen a bunch of the things he's done. Like, was he the water?
Yes.
What, the underwater one? Yeah.
He was like his most famous one is the milk crate escape, as it was called, which is where he would climb into a big container he used to put milk in, and then have it sealed on top, and then he'd escape from that, from behind a sheet.
This is the milk can escape. It's an original Houdini illusion, and this is the original milk can.
But other things that he escaped from in his time, I've got a list here. He escaped from prison cells, straitjackets, crates weighed down with lead in the process of being thrown into a river, and one time he even escaped from the belly of a whale.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they had a washed up whale on a beach, and Houdini's like, well, strap me in a straitjacket and chuck me into the whale, I'll escape from the whale, and he escaped from the whale.
I pictured it being like Pinocchio, where he sails out into the sea to get eaten by a whale.
What's the thing? Yeah, what's the cliff I'm going to put in? Unless Disney copyright strike it, then I've got to find one of the many Disney, non-Disney Pinocchio knockoffs. So did you see? There were like 3 Pinocchio movies released in 2022, and they all starred the same person. Like
Wait, did they all have the same one?
Tom Kenny was in all of them, playing a different character.
Of course he was. Now, I know they released an absolutely awful one at the start of the year. Mm-hmm. Then Disney somehow topped it with their soulless remake, where he doesn't even really turn into a real boy at the end. And then we have the Del Toro one, which I haven't watched, but I assume is better than the other two.
Because it's Guillermo del Toro, and at least he's good at making like weird, uncomfortable visuals. That's like kind of his whole shtick, that and giant robots. But like Harry Houdini was an exceptionally good escape artist, and it's widely considered that there was nothing he could not escape from, which is a boast he frequently made because it made people want to challenge him all the more. And as I mentioned, like, he'd go into crates, he'd be put underwater, like his famous escape with like the underwater torture one, but it's worth noting that in each of those escape attempts, he would also be wearing like a multitude of handcuffs, shackles, straitjackets, and other things meant to impede his movements, and he escaped from them all. And the reason why the milk crate escape is his most like famous and considered most dangerous is because he'd do that while trapped underwater in complete darkness in 3 pairs of handcuffs. So he had to pick 3 locks completely blind while only being able to move while also drowning.
See, it sounds really impressive, but whenever I see a performance about to start and the person says, oh, I'm an escapologist, or I'm going to escape from this, my mind then automatically goes, well, it's not impressive then, because this is what you do.
It is what you do, but things can go wrong. And with Harry Houdini, it's worth noting that while he did, have a magic act as well, and he was a very competent magician, we've got to text.
Is it important?
Working! He was at risk of dying when he did all of these things. There wasn't any trickery involved. He really was escaping from all of these things through nothing more than his own wits and knowledge of how to pick locks. And so like when Joey's like the picture of him like wearing handcuffs, being thrown into the water in a straitjacket, there's no trickery there. He's just really good at escaping from a straitjacket.
Ah, right. So they weren't like made in such a way that they had a secret escape, like latch or pull string or something. And
that's something that a lot of magicians will do. Like you probably watched when you were a kid, Brad, like The Masked Magician.
Oh, yes.
I think it's like, he had a name as well. His name was really fucking cool, so I'm going to look it up now, because I think he's like an actual magician. He had a super cool name. It's like Valentino. Yeah, Val Valentino. Oh. The Masked Magician. And
I remember the reveal. Do you remember the reveal?
Valentino, the Masked Magician.
I always got mad though that the Masked Magician never appeared on like WWE. Because in my head, it was airing at the same time. I always wanted to be a WWE crossover with the Masked Magician, and he's got to escape from the Hell in a Cell.
Well, I keep complaining that WWE, like, when they went down the Attitude, like, route, a lot of the mysticism and, like, the fiction of the storylines went super realistic. Like, imagine if you had the magician disappear and appearing around the arena. multiple versions of him coming into one fight.
Well, never forget that time that Hulk Hogan died in the ring and Macho Man Randy Savage revived him by elbow dropping him. He's like dead and he elbow drops him. And it's like, yeah, bring that shit back. And in regards to Harold Houdini, yes, he didn't have, like some magicians and escapologists would today, like trick cuffs or anything like that. Everything he escaped from was real, and he in fact had a standing challenge to anyone who wished to take him up on it, to put him into something he couldn't escape from. And that's how he drew those massive crowds that he became famous for. Like, for example, I mentioned he escaped from prison cells, and one of the things that he would do when he'd go to, like, a new town to try and, like, drum up support and get people interested in his act, he would go to the local police station and say, oh, can I try and escape from your prison cell? And they'd be like, sure, no one can escape from our prison cell. Then he'd escape from their prison cell. And obviously that would get a lot of people interested in what the hell was going on. When it's like, yeah, here he is, see a man escape from a prison cell, and he does it in like 10 seconds.
My prison is escape proof.
How'd you do it, Harry? Gentlemen, the only thing in the world I don't escape from.
But did he ever tattoo the prison plan on his body to go and rescue his brother from prison?
I still cannot get over when you told me in like the latest season of Prison Break, Michael Scofield tattoos new tattoos on him, and one of them is like a face on his hand so he can do that. I could never get over that.
Oh god, I need to rewatch it. Like, I don't remember anything else about that season except that one image of him putting his hands in front of his face and opening a security lock with it.
It's what's behind the eyes that counts.
I still think my favourite thing about Prison Break is how quickly it goes off the fucking rails, where it starts with man escaping from prison. He's got all the okay, that's a bit unbelievable, but like, that's the gimmick of the show. And then it ends with like Teabag getting a robot hand.
Oh god, I forgot about the robot arm.
Never forget that show gave a child molester a robot hand.
I always found it fascinating how they made Teabag into this likable character, and it's like, he's the paedophile. Like, no.
It's Robert Nepper, just the actor's that good.
Yeah, sometimes you just got so much charisma.
And just the fact that they give a paedophile a robot hand, it's like, now he's just going to be turbo molesting. Why
I
would
think
you give him that power?
In the 5th season, I can't remember, I'm going to have to double check, but I don't think he's in prison anymore, and I'm pretty sure he's working for some government agency.
Yeah, he goes and works in an office. He just goes and works in an office. It's so stupid. Anyway.
I'm gonna tell you a better story about captivity than the regular old spiel. Years back, I was providing volunteer leadership in a local penitentiary. I worked with the head guard, a big, burly bull named Brad. Mean as the devil.
Like, while Houdini was, like, just his bread and butter was escaping from all manner of seemingly inescapable things, and, like, he would routinely just, like, up the ante every time he did a new show because people came to expect bigger and bigger and more extravagant things from him. According to Houdini himself, his single most difficult escape was from one pair of handcuffs that just so happened to be incredibly well made.
So were they just, like, were they normal handcuffs that were made well, or were they made specifically to stop somebody like him from escaping?
And handcuffs is probably the wrong descriptor for what these things were, because they were like the thing they put around Captain Marvel's hands just to stop Carol Danvers from flying away. They were ridiculous.
You guys wouldn't happen to know how these things come off, would you? No? Fine.
And they were created by, I have it here, a blacksmith who'd spent years creating an inescapable pair of handcuffs. And Houdini was contacted by the Daily Mail, and they asked him, would you like to prove yourself the greatest escapologist in the world by escaping from the inescapable pair of handcuffs? And Houdini's like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, handcuffs are kind of my thing, and he was known to be able to escape from a pair of handcuffs in like less than 5 seconds.
I'm guessing it didn't take less than 5 seconds then.
It did not, no. But word of this supposedly inescapable pair of handcuffs that could best even the great Harry Houdini resulted in a crowd of thousands of people gathering to watch Houdini escape. And imagine their frustration then when one, Harry Houdini, walked onto stage wearing the handcuffs and requested to perform his act behind a sheet. To hide his very secretive lockpicking techniques and also to give the illusion that two ghosts are having rough sex on stage. But then that it took half an hour for Houdini to sheepishly walk from behind the sheet asking for a cushion.
You're gonna die, you little bastards!
He is part man, part pillow. All carnage. Pierce Hawthorne has transformed himself into an unstoppably plush juggernaut.
Oh god.
So what do you think?
Half an hour. So
yeah.
What's the cushion for? Oh god. What do you use a cushion for? I mean, obviously to cushion something in your hand so you can hit something against someone else, right?
It was just to sit down because he was tired.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was tired because he'd been like obviously stood up struggling. And all I can think now, have you seen like the American Office where Michael tries to escape from a straitjacket?
No.
There's like a bit in that where he's like, I can escape from a straitjacket, and he has like the key in his mouth. Then he drops it. And then he spends like 40 minutes just like doing the worm across the office floor trying to escape. And that's what it looked like. And again, after another agonizing 20 or so minutes, Harry Houdini came from behind the sheet once again and requested that the organisers undo the shackles so he could try again. You know, like, hazard a guess at why you wanted to try again?
Had he fucked it up somehow?
He'd not fucked it up, no. He'd worn his coat and he couldn't manoeuvre himself very well without taking it off. So he said, can you take the shackles off? I'll take the coat off, put them back on, and then I'll escape. So I'll have more freedom of movement. And what do you think the creator of the handcuffs said? No!
I'm going to go with it's not going to help.
They told him, fuck no. I'll take them off if you admit you have been bested. And keep in mind, like, Harry Houdini was in front of a crowd of thousands, who, all of whom had paid to be there, and he was like billed as the greatest escapologist on Earth. So he very begrudgingly drew a knife from his pocket with his teeth and cut himself out of his coat using his teeth. So he basically gnawed his way out of his own coat, went back behind the sheet, and came out 5 minutes later with the handcuffs undone.
It's like that scene from 127 Hours is flashing through my mind.
Just like gnawing through it. It's like, admit that you've been bested. He's there like, no. It's like, gnawing through his own coat.
Those people definitely got their money's worth, though.
Oh, yeah.
If you knew he was the greatest escapologist of all time, you being able to watch him not escape is probably better value than just watching him get out.
Oh, yeah, it's like, cause that's the thing, isn't it, of the story you get to tell. But I saw Houdini bested, and he knew that his pride and like basically his career was on the line here. So that's why he chose not to admit that he'd been bested and instead, removed his coat with a knife clenched between his teeth like a fucking pirate or something. Went back behind the sheet, undid the cuffs, came back out and handed them to the blacksmith, presumably while shooting him the most I fucking told you so look ever. Well, yeah, and years later he would recount that was the singular most difficult escape he'd ever done. And it was just him who stood on stage, sat on a cushion.
He definitely wouldn't have done it if the guy hadn't challenged him and said you need to keep your coat on.
Yeah.
It was the pissed offness that did it.
Yeah, it was the anger. Because I think at that point you would know how uncomfortable you are to prove that guy wrong.
Just give me another cushion, I'll do it.
Well, so Faraway Brad, we briefly mentioned both WWE and The Masked Magician. So I say let's go back and talk about just those shows from our childhood that are never coming back. Because you could never make another show like The Masked Magician today because you can just see how they're all done on YouTube.
Yeah, and dickheads online on like Reddit will just be like, this is exactly how it's done.
They'd spoil it, yeah. It's like, have you ever watched the show Fool Me with Penn and Teller?
Yeah. I've seen a few clips. I've not watched the whole show.
Like, that's a really, really good show, but it's one of the worst things to watch clips of on YouTube because the top comment is always like, here's how it's done.
Yeah.
Which
But
completely
then,
ignores...
you're scrolling down because you want to know how it's
Yeah,
going.
and it completely ruins the premise of the show when the whole point is that you got a full Penn and Teller, and they've got like, they have to. So people don't know, Fool Me is a reality competition show where you got to perform a magic trick in front of Penn and Teller, two incredibly good magicians who are well versed in virtually all aspects of magic. You perform a trick once on stage, and if they can't figure out how it's done, you get to open for them at their Las Vegas show. And then it's like all the comments on all the videos online, like people figuring out how it's done. It's like, yeah, because you've got the benefit of rewinding it in HD and watching it multiple times.
Yeah.
Like people give in the comments Penn and Teller shit for not figuring it out. It's like, one, they're watching it from 20, 30 feet away. They get to watch it once, and they don't have the benefit of all the different camera angles and stuff that you have.
Who was that guy who issued the challenge for people to show him real magic?
Oh, that's the Amazing Randy.
Randy. He's a magician known as the Amazing Randy, and he's proud of what he does.
I'm a liar, a cheat, a fake, a charlatan, and a thief. But at least I do it with a certain amount of panache, which may command your respect, if not your outright admiration.
Randy, that's it, yeah. That's what the show reminds me of, but just real, as in actual magicians rather than people, blowing phone book pages over.
It was the Amazing Randy who did that. But yeah, I think that's the closest you get to something like the Masked Magician today. And weirdly enough, Penn and Teller, back in the day, when they were their shock magic phase, when they were before Chris Angel and all that, they actually did a couple of magic tricks that people were legitimately, how the fuck did you do that? There was one where it's where Teller got run over by a truck, and they tell you how it's done because that was their whole shtick. They invent a magic trick, do it, and then tell you how it's done at the end of the episode. And it was
the Masked Magician did that as well.
Yeah, it's Teller got run over by a truck, and people are how the fuck did you do that? And it's we weighed the truck down, and the tires made of foam. And magicians will get mad at them for doing that. Why would you tell me all that's done? That's an amazing trick. You could make a career off that trick. And no, I'm just going to tell you how it's done.
Chest on Teller? So going over a reinforced chest, that a ramp in there? What do you think? Maybe it's a fake Teller. Is that his real body? Is it moving right? What do you think? It's going to be time to pay up soon.
They generally only expose tricks that they've invented, for one, and secondly, they only ever expose something if the actual secret is more interesting than the original sort of trick itself.
Well, stuff you made. I'm sorry. Don't spoil it for your... It's very unprofessional, I think, spoiling it for your fellow magicians, and as well as the fact you've spoilt the whole thing for me.
Can you remember what your favourite Masked Magician stunt was?
I think not so much the magic aspect, I just liked the way he presented the show. I like the gimmick of a magician who looked like a WWE wrestler. And I kind of like the voiceover from the guy where it's one of those things where it's a very specific tone, but it felt like the narrator knew the Masked Magician personally, so they talk about it, and they're the fact they so lionize the Masked Magician.
The magician starts with empty hands and shows us an ordinary can of beer. It's still factory sealed, and judging by the generic brand, certainly nothing special.
And he was so theatrical, because I admittedly, that big theatrical stage show magic isn't as impressive anymore, because I think the way it's summed up, it's with paranormal activity and things like that. Of if you see a video online of a chair whipping up into the air and flying around the room, that's fake.
Yeah.
If you see a chair move 1 inch with no visible way it's been pushed, that's a ghost. And it's the same thing with magic, where if you see a guy levitate a tiger and spin it around, it's that's fake. But if you see a guy move a card from one hand to the other, it's in your head you can kind of believe that's real. But I do like the theatrics of just having just the half-naked ladies on stage just dancing around. I think just the fact he wears the mask, that gimmick alone is what sold me on it.
Now the reason I bring it up is, do you remember I think it was the appearing elephant one, where the trick turned out to be that he just turned the camera around and they walked the elephant in?
Thing is though, that's how it's done. That's it. It's all about misdirection. Admittedly, some of those tricks aren't great.
He was definitely not on the witness list. The girls are impressed. Maybe the Masked Magician can do real magic after all. From this high angle, you can see the elephant walking toward the sheet as the fabric box is being constructed. From this low angle, the sheet is blocking the approaching elephant.
Like you have, like David Copperfield. Is probably like the worst example of that because he's actually one of the most talented magicians on the planet, but he's mostly known for doing those big, huge illusions that obviously it's like smoke and mirrors. That's why the phrase comes from. It's like making like the Statue of Liberty and stuff disappear. It's like, it's obviously you're not making the Statue of Liberty disappear. It's obviously, but he's like so good at all aspects of magic and he's invented so many tricks. There was a story about him getting mugged once, and he managed to avoid being mugged, so he used sleight of hand to convince the mugger he didn't have a wallet. It's just, all right then.
Is it true that you were once held up at gunpoint and did a trick to get out of it?
Yeah, that was a pretty stupid day.
I hope he did it like that.
Yeah.
Whipping his hands
like,
around.
But what, like, you know, character from, like, you know, 90s era television do you think would have slotted perfectly into the world of WWE? Because I think the Masked Magician could have done it. I think the Masked Magician would have been an amazing addition to WWE. Tag team, Dick and Dom. Oh, and they'd be like the Hardy Boys. Yeah. They'd be like the Hardy Boys. Like, you know, the Hardy Boys, well, they're giving him, like, ladders and tables, but they'd have, like, Gunge. They'd have Gunge and the power of just doing a shit ton of cocaine.
What do you reckon?
Well, as like I said, I think the Masked Magician, because like wrestling being fake has never really mattered to most people who care about wrestling. Because that's one of those weird criticisms I never got. Like, you know, wrestling's fake. And it's like, yes, so's Hollyoaks, but I still watch that because it's entertaining and I like the characters. Why does it matter? So I think someone like the Masked Magician, you could go in and it's like, okay, he's got magic powers, and you know he's not got magic powers, but if it's done in a way that's entertaining, I don't care. I just want to see him do magic tricks. I want to see him like do like escapology, like, oh, it's a Hell in a Cell match, and he just like puff of dust and he appears outside the cage.
If Vince McMahon can fight God, the Masked Magician can teleport through
exactly, and I think you could do some absolute horse shit with like a wrestling persona whose gimmick is they are an actual magician who does magic tricks. There's all sorts of crazy bullshit.
All you need to do is you need to introduce a wrestler who's a mad scientist and have him use his science to transform the Muppets into life-size people.
Oh,
and then
the
just get
Monstars.
people wearing Muppet outfits.
Like bring them in, like do the Monstars. Because it reminds me a little bit of when you play like, I think it's NHL, those games. One of the modes they have in the game is just mascot brawl. And it just puts it to two aside and you play as mascots from various teams. And he's just kick the foot. And I always wondered why I did. Like, no NBA game ever just do, fuck it, we're doing Space Jam mode. Just put Bugs Bunny in as, like, you know, a bonus mode. It's like when I play FIFA games, here's a free idea for EA, or anyone making a football game. Do Schoolyard Picks mode, and do it, like, 5-a-side, and it's just a random group of, like, 20 players, like, you know, seed some really good ones in the top, so you get, like, a Messi on there, a Ronaldo, but then a couple of, like, no-name players from other teams, and it's just each person has to pick which person they want on their team, and you've got to build a team of 5 for 5-a-side from just like, you know, this pool of like 10 or so. And play
That's a really good idea.
And do schoolyard picks.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. EA right now, listening to you, thinking of how to monetize it.
Yep. Well, that's why they have Ultimate Team, isn't it?
What is Ultimate Team? I've never played it. Can you play with the players that you get?
Ultimate Team is it's, do you know that's Match Attacks, the sticker game?
Yeah.
It's that if it costs way more.
But, like, you get the players, but apparently they have different values for the same players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have, like,
so you can get a player who's better than another player who's the same player.
Yeah.
Could you put multiples of the same one on a team?
I don't think so, no, unless there's a mode where you can do that. But also, I think this is what got me when I saw a mate playing Ultimate Team, where he had, like, his team. And it was all set up, and he had, like, Ronaldo. I was like, oh, cool, so your team's built then, you don't have to spend any money. He's like, no, because Ronaldo, I've only got it for 4 games, and then I need to go open up more card packs so I can get, like, Ronaldo's contract up to like that. And he's like, fuck it, mate, they've got you.
No.
They've got you by the short and curlies. This is it.
God, I'm surprised, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo turns up fucking naked, and they're like, you got to open his kit, or he can't go out there because he'll be arrested.
He's only got one boot.
If he gets arrested, you got to get a jail card.
Boots. But I just never understood why they do, because they in some FIFA games they do like the World 11, don't they? And they do like the classic World 11, like here's like the best players in the world. Why have they not just doubled down on that? Because I've never seen anyone play FIFA who doesn't play their favourite team, which is inevitably Manchester United, Chelsea or Arsenal or AC Milan. Why do they even bother putting in all 500 other teams in the world when people just play AC Milan?
Yeah, well, whenever I used to play, we used to do randoms because there's no other way you would play any other team. You would just do random teams and then play with who you got.
Yeah, I play Scottish rules, which is like based on that quote from The Simpsons of it's like the natural enemies, like Scots and the Americans, or Scots and the Japanese, or Scots and other Scots. Those damn Scots, they ruined Scotland. So the goal is pick two teams who hate each other, or like two countries who historically don't like each other, and your goal is take out as many people on the other team as possible before you get sent off. You just injure as many people as you can.
Like Englishmen and Scots, or Welshmen and Scots, or Japanese and Scots, or Scots and other Scots. Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
You Scots sure are a contentious people.
You just made an enemy for life!
If there's a way to change the rules in the game so that the game isn't called off when you get so many red cards.
I've always wondered that's why, like red card soccer. Why is there not just you can snap people in half mode?
Well, they introduced something in one of the later ones where there were power-ups and a team that had
modifiers
possession
and stuff like that. Yeah, where you can kick the ball
get,
super far and things like that.
Like that, do that to the game. It makes it like there's so many more options of people who want to just play it. But no, let's just sell fucking fake cards.
That's what makes the money. It's like the UFC games. Like those UFC games are so fun right up until you play them with someone who knows what they're doing. Because the instant you play with someone who knows what they're doing, they grapple you, and it just becomes like here's like 18 different prompts for all the different grapples. And it's like, what the fuck is a reverse underhook grip? How do I counter that? And they just kill you and they take you out. But if you just play that game as just like standing up and beating the fuck out of each other, and just kicking each other till you fall over, it's a fantastic, hilarious, fun experience.
This is interesting. Jones just pulled a mummy guard. Now he's trying to lure Alex in by casting a spell. He's showing incredible flexibility in his bones, Joe. Carmouche with a nice 70-foot sliding takedown. Oh, she's out, Joe. She's out, and Liz Carmouche doesn't realize it. Carmouche is going to town on the air. Those are nasty shots. Rhonda taking a moment to catch her breath. Eve Levine looking intensely at the action. Carmouche is going to tire herself out, Mike. Rhonda needs to be careful not to hit her in the back of the head. Right into a butt back mount.
Yeah, there's a way in those games to turn off the grapples.
You can, yes. You can just play like stand and fight. Or you could, but in that mode, they take away some of like the counter mechanics. So what you've got to do is just play. It's like if you grab, let them stand back up. That's the thing. It's like it's so antithetical to fun. It's like we mentioned like later wrestling games, like those arcadey, like remember where I brought to one of the live events, like Taste the Pain? And it's like super arcadey and really fast, and like everything just flows really smoothly. You play at modern wrestling games, it's like, okay, so you get your grab, then you got your modifier, and then you throw, and it's like the games are so glacially slow. Because their emphasis is on simulation, and it's like, but I don't give a fuck if I can like modify my heavy throw. I just want to do drop kicks and fucking choke slams. That's all I care about.
We went past that era of gaming as well. Like, do you remember Wrath of Cortex, the Crash Bandicoot game on PS2? Slow as fuck, loading times were infinite, Crash moved more realistically, which meant that he was slower, and it was boring, and then they had to fix that in later titles.
That's never
we've had that in games, it just isn't fun for things to move like realistically.
Yeah, some people do like the simulation aspect, and for those people, Soccer Manager exists. You can just go play football. If you just want to look at spreadsheets, you can go play Football Manager, but with just something about the idea of like FIFA having such an emphasis on realism, it makes it just horribly unfun to play in a casual sense. And it's like fighting games. I play a lot of fighting games, but there are some where the mechanics are so in depth that I can't play them casually. Like I could play something like Tekken casually because it's just 4 buttons. It's just a 4-button fighter, and each button correlates to a limb that your character has. There's like Guilty Gear, where there's like 18 different mechanics, and every character has their own unique mechanic, and there's like individual frame data on like 500 different moves. I'm not fucking learning how to do that to play this game casually once every couple of months with a friend. And as a result, I'm not going to fucking buy it. And there's a line that can be drawn, and I don't know exactly where it should be drawn, but I think for sports games, it should, like, I'd rather we have stuff like SSX, Tricky, and Burnout than I would have like Tiger Woods, PGA Golf, and like Gran Turismo. But at the same time, people also like Gran Turismo, so I just know I prefer a game where I can pick it up and like beat a friend.
Games aren't about that anymore. They're about money.
Yeah, because I think that's the line there where if someone who's never played the game before can randomly beat someone who's like, you know, an expert on it, I think that's a good game in the sense that it's balanced enough where everyone has fun. So you play, what is it, the Crash Bandicoot games, and you told me like it's impossible to play those racing games online because people who know what they're doing just get so far ahead there's literally no way to impact what they're doing.
Yeah, they've unfortunately, unlike I think Mario, that the blue shell
that's what
is very impactful. The electric in Crash Bandicoot sort of stuns you for a second and then you carry on. I don't think it even halts your momentum. I think you just keep going forwards.
Yeah, because there's this great essay someone wrote about why the blue shell in Mario is like one of the best things they ever invented, like for that genre. Because like people get annoyed by it, and people who are good at the game get annoyed by it. Like, I fucking hate getting hit by a blue shell. And their point is, well, it's not for the people who are good at the game. Because people who are good at the game are more consistently going to win regardless. But the blue shell allows people who aren't good at the game, or children, to feel like they have an impact on the final result. But if you make that same child play something like a Crash Bandicoot, or is it Crash Team Racing, where a person who is good will literally never get touched by anyone in last place. Unless they crash into them. And that doesn't feel good for the person in last place. And as a result, they stop fucking playing.
The electric in Crash Bandicoot is supposed to be the same as the blue shell. Like, it will go forwards, it'll track the person in first, but it's so slow and so impactless that you lose like 3 seconds or something. It's just not worth it.
And that's the point that's been made there of like, yes, it feels bad for the person in first place, but imagine how it feels to be the person in last place. And imagine just being, and it's like, the answer is you just stop playing, and as a result, the player base just completely dies off, and then there's no one to play the game with. So I think one of the best ones I've heard in regards to that is Gears of War. Like, it was years after the game got released, one of the developers just sheepishly admitted, when you first booted up Gears of War and played online, you might not have noticed this, but all of your shots had more tracking on your aim. You had more aim assist, your shots did more damage, and you had like 200% health. And the reason we did that is so that when you played your first 5 or so games, you were very likely to win any encounter that you had with another player, even if they were better than you on paper. And like they got a response from, that's not very fair, is it? It's like, well, no, admittedly, it's not fair. But that 5, we had looked at the statistics and saw that if people did not get a kill in their first 5 games, they stopped playing. But if they got 1 kill, just 1 in those first 5 games, that was enough encouragement to keep playing and therefore get better. So in our eyes, it's what it's worth giving them an unfair advantage in that first 5 games to keep them playing and maintain a healthy player base. And the amount of people who got really annoyed about it, like, well, no, you're giving them more health and damage. Like, and you've played 2,000 hours of it. You've got more experience. If you lose to that person, fair enough. You've got 1 more death on your KD, but now you've got another person to play against for the next 5 years.
How can you take issue with that? Like, they're brand new to the game, they don't know what they're doing.
It's that myopic way a lot of gamers look at the player base of their video game of just, I don't want anything that gives people worse than me an advantage, but I will simultaneously take every advantage that I can get to dominate and steamroll lower rank players. Like, look at how many, like, you had actual professional Call of Duty players being annoyed at the idea of skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty because they couldn't steamroll new players. Something that, like, you know, actively diminishes the player base of the game their entire career is relying on.
This happens constantly in Fortnite. Whenever they add an update or an item that can help the people who can't build have a chance against the builders, the builders are in uproar, and it's ruined the game. The game isn't fun anymore, it can't be played.
It's like, it's making it too easy for like people who aren't very good. It's like, yeah, it's almost like you want more people playing your game. It's almost like the people making Fortnite don't want just 2,000 like sweat lords playing their game exclusively. They want 8 million people running around as Goku with a shotgun.